My 30th birthday was supposed to be the start of a beautiful new decade, filled with love and laughter. Instead, my husband used it as the stage to expose a shattering betrayal, turning my perfect life into a public spectacle. The fairy lights I'd spent all afternoon stringing up in the old oak tree were twinkling, casting a warm, magical glow over our backyard. Laughter echoed from every corner, mingling with the soft indie music playing from the speakers. It was my 30th birthday, a milestone I'd been both dreading and looking forward to, and my husband Mark had insisted we go all out. Our friends and family were here, milling around on the lawn of the home we'd bought together 2 years ago. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. I remember smoothing down the front of my white sundress, a gift from him, and feeling a wave of pure, uncomplicated happiness wash over me. From across the yard, I caught Mark's eye. He was talking to my dad, but he winked at me, that familiar, private gesture that always made my stomach flutter, even after 10 years together. He was so handsome, it sometimes stole my breath away. He looked like the hero from a romance novel. Tall, with dark, unruly hair and a smile that could disarm armies. He was my rock, my high school sweetheart, the man who had held my hand through every triumph and every tear. I thought about the little things, the way he'd been so stressed about work lately, staying late at the office, coming home looking exhausted. I'd made a mental note to book us a weekend away, just the two of us, as soon as this party was over. He needed to relax. We needed some time. "He's staring at you again," my best friend Chloe whispered, bumping her shoulder against mine. She handed me another glass of champagne. "You two are disgustingly in love. It's been a decade. Give the rest of us a chance." I laughed, taking a sip. Never. Chloe had been my maid of honor, the third person in our relationship since we were all in kindergarten together. She was more of a sister than a friend. I watched as she went to grab a canapé, her blonde ponytail swinging behind her. I felt a pang of gratitude so sharp it almost hurt. My perfect husband, my perfect best friend, my perfect life. A little while later, Mark clinked a fork against his glass, calling for everyone's attention. A hush fell over the 50 or so guests. My heart swelled with pride and affection. He was going to give a speech. He hated public speaking, but he was doing it for me. He stood on the patio steps, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, looking every bit the man of my dreams. "Hi, everyone," he started, his voice steady and clear. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate the most important person in my life." He smiled directly at me, and I felt my cheeks flush. The crowd cooed. 30 years ago, the world was blessed with this incredible woman. She's kind, she's beautiful, she's the light of my life, and my absolute best friend. Tears pricked my eyes. This was more than I could have hoped for. I saw Chloe beaming at me from across the lawn, mouthing, "I told you so." Mark continued, his smile never wavering. "Every day I wake up next to her, I think about how lucky I am. I think about the life we've built, this home, this family of friends." He paused and reached into the inside pocket of his blazer. My breath caught in my throat. Was this it? A surprise gift? A necklace? Maybe tickets to that trip to Italy we'd always talked about? My heart was hammering against my ribs in anticipation, but what he pulled out wasn't a small velvet box or a pair of tickets. It was a thick folded stack of papers, held together by a clip. I frowned, confused. Was it a poem? Some sort of joke deed to a star named after me? He unfolded the documents with a flourish. The festive mood in the yard curdled into confused silence. His smile was gone, replaced by a cold, hard mask I'd never seen before. "But sometimes," he said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming sharp and cruel, "you wake up and you realize that the life you've built is actually a cage. A beautifully decorated, very comfortable cage, but a cage nonetheless." My own smile froze on my face. A nervous laugh rippled through some of the guests, who still thought this was some kind of bizarre joke. But I knew, I saw it in his eyes. This was real. "So for your 30th birthday, my love," he said, the endearment dripping with venom. "I'm not giving you a gift. I'm giving you your freedom." And then he walked towards me. He didn't stop until he was standing right in front of me, close enough for me to see the utter lack of emotion in his eyes. He lifted the stack of papers, and with a flick of his wrist, he threw them in my face. The crisp edges of the paper scratched my cheek as they scattered, fluttering down around me onto the grass. I looked down, my vision blurring with tears, and saw the bold heading at the top of the first page: Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. A collective gasp went through the crowd. My own breath was trapped in my lungs. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, my husband, as he turned back to our horrified friends and family. "And for anyone wondering why," he announced, his voice booming across the silent yard, "why I would do this now, on her birthday, in front of all of you." He let the question hang in the air, a sick, theatrical pause. He scanned the crowd, a cruel smirk twisting his perfect lips. "It's because the person who is the true cause of all this is right here with us tonight." My head snapped up. What was he talking about? My mind raced, trying to make sense of anything. He wasn't looking at me anymore. I followed his gaze, my heart pounding a frantic, painful rhythm against my ribs. His eyes settled on someone standing near the old oak tree, someone who had suddenly gone pale as a ghost, her champagne flute trembling in her hand. My best friend, Chloe. The world tilted on its axis. My gaze was locked on Chloe, and every sound in the universe seemed to fade away except for the frantic thumping of my own heart. I saw her lips part, a silent no forming. Her face, usually so vibrant and full of life, was a mess of chalky white fear. The champagne flute she'd been holding slipped from her fingers, shattering on the stone patio with a sound that felt as loud as a gunshot. It was a sound that broke the spell. Whispers erupted around us like a brush fire. People started shifting uncomfortably, averting their eyes, suddenly fascinated by their shoes or the half-eaten food on their plates. It was a joke. It had to be. A sick, twisted, horrible prank Mark was pulling. He had a dark sense of humor sometimes, but this was beyond cruel. "Mark, stop it!" I finally choked out, my voice a strangled whisper. I turned to him, my hands trembling. "This isn't funny. Tell everyone you're joking." He looked down at me, his expression utterly devoid of warmth. It was like looking at a stranger. "Do I look like I'm joking?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. "I've been watching you two for months, the little glances, the late-night texts you thought I didn't see. Chloe, why don't you tell her about our little lunch dates? The ones you had when you were supposed to be helping her plan this very party?" My head whipped back towards Chloe. Her eyes were wide with panic, swimming in tears. She wouldn't look at me. She just stared at Mark, a look of pure terror on her face. And in that moment, seeing her guilt, the terrible truth crashed down on me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't a joke. It was real. The man I loved and the woman I called my sister had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. "No," I breathed, shaking my head, a wave of nausea rolling through me. "No, you're lying." "Am I?" Mark sneered. He took a step closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Ask her about the little anchor tattoo on my hip, the one you hate. I bet she knows all about it." I felt the air leave my lungs. Only 3 people in the world knew about that stupid tattoo he'd gotten on a drunken trip with his college friends. Me, him, and the tattoo artist. It was a silly secret, a part of our shared history. And he had just shared it with her. The party was officially over. People were murmuring excuses, grabbing their bags and slipping out the side gate like frightened mice. My own parents were pushing through the remaining crowd, their faces etched with fury and concern. My dad, a man I'd rarely seen lose his temper, got right in Mark's face. "Get out of my daughter's house," he growled, his voice dangerously low. "Now." Mark just laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Gladly. It's more hers than mine anyway, isn't it? He shot me a final, hateful look. Everything in this house, this life, it was always about you. Well, you can have it. He turned and strode through the scattering guests without a backward glance, leaving a crater of devastation in his wake. I just stood there, frozen, amidst the twinkling fairy lights and the wreckage of my life. The divorce papers lay scattered at my feet like toxic confetti. Most people were gone now, except for my parents and a few close family friends who hovered uselessly, not knowing what to say. And Chloe, she was still there, huddled by the patio table, sobbing uncontrollably. My mom put a gentle hand on my arm. "Honey, let's go inside." I shook my head, shrugging her off. A cold, hard anger was starting to burn through the shock. I walked towards Chloe, each step feeling heavy, deliberate. She flinched as I approached, finally looking up at me, her face streaked with mascara and shame. Why? It was the only word I could manage. It came out cracked and broken. After everything, kindergarten, prom, my wedding. You were my maid of honor. You stood beside me and watched me marry him. How long? She just shook her head, unable to speak through her sobs. "How long?" I screamed, the sound ripping from my throat, raw and animalistic. "6 months," she finally whispered, the words barely audible. It just happened. "It just happened," I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "It just happened that you started sleeping with my husband? The man I share a bed with? The man I was planning on starting a family with?" The anger was so immense it made me feel lightheaded. I wanted to hit her, to hurt her the way she had just shattered me, but I just stood there, shaking. My perfect life, my perfect husband, my perfect best friend, all of it a lie. Every laugh, every secret, every shared memory was now tainted, rotten from the inside out. There had to be more. This level of public cruelty from Mark, this utter destruction, it felt like it was about more than just an affair. There was a reason he chose tonight, a reason for this specific theatrical brand of torture. "Why would he do this now?" I asked, my voice dropping again, desperate for an answer that would make any of this make sense. "Why tonight? Why tell everyone like this?" Chloe finally looked me straight in the eye, her own filled with a fresh wave of despair, a terror so profound it chilled me to the bone. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach, a gesture I didn't understand for a split second, and then she delivered the final fatal blow. "Because I told him he had to." She sobbed, her voice breaking completely. "He couldn't keep lying to you. Not anymore. Not now that I'm pregnant." Pregnant. The word hung in the air, thick and suffocating. It landed with more force than the divorce papers, more pain than the public humiliation. It was the final twisting turn of the knife. A baby. His baby. Not with me. The woman who had been meticulously tracking her ovulation cycle for the past year, but with her, my best friend, my sister. The shock was so profound it felt like my entire nervous system had short-circuited. I couldn't feel my limbs. The twinkling fairy lights, once so magical, now seemed to mock me, illuminating the grotesque theater of my life's implosion. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange glacial calm settled over me. It was the kind of quiet that comes after a bomb has gone off, when the ringing in your ears finally stops and you're left with the silent, smoking ruins. My parents rushed to my side, my dad putting a protective arm around me while my mom's eyes blazed with a fury I'd never seen directed at anyone but me for not cleaning my room as a teenager. "Get out," my mother said to Chloe, her voice dangerously soft, each word a shard of ice. "Get out of my daughter's home and don't you ever come near her again." Chloe stumbled to her feet, a fresh torrent of tears streaming down her face, and practically ran from the yard, disappearing into the darkness. I just stood there, watching her go. The part of me that loved her felt a phantom pain like a severed limb, but the rest of me felt nothing. just a vast, cold emptiness. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, sympathetic but pitying looks from friends, and the slow, agonizing process of dismantling a life. Mark was true to his word. He wanted nothing. He signed over the house, the joint bank accounts, everything. His lawyer communicated that he just wanted it all over with. It wasn't generosity, it was cowardice. He couldn't face the mess he'd made, so he just walked away from the debris field. Chloe, I heard through the grapevine, had moved in with him into a small apartment across town. The thought of them playing house, choosing paint colors for a nursery while I was packing my wedding album into a box, was enough to make me physically ill. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place. Rage. A pure, clarifying anger that burned away the tears and the self-pity. He wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to make me the pathetic victim in his grand drama. Fine, but he wasn't going to write the ending. I threw myself into my work as a graphic designer. I started running every morning, pounding the pavement until my lungs burned and my mind was quiet. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who had been pushed to the periphery by my all-consuming marriage. I took down the photos of Mark and me and put up pictures of my travels, my family, myself. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to rebuild. I discovered that the cage Mark had talked about wasn't the life we built, but the box he had tried to put me in, the supportive wife, the future mother, the person whose own ambitions were always meant to come second. About 8 months after my disastrous 30th birthday party, I was sitting in a cafe downtown when he walked in. Mark. He looked diminished. The confident swagger was gone. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his expensive suit looked rumpled. He saw me and froze. For a moment I thought he would turn and walk out, but instead he walked over to my table. "Can I sit down?" he asked, his voice hesitant. I just shrugged, my heart a steady, even rhythm in my chest. He sat fumbling with a sugar packet. "How are you?" he asked lamely. "I'm good, Mark," I said, and the surprising thing was I meant it. "Actually, I'm really good. I got the promotion I was passed over for last year. I'm thinking of doing a solo trip to Spain. My life, as it turns out, is pretty great without you in it." He flinched. "Look, I know what I did was unforgivable. There's no excuse. I was a coward. I felt trapped, and I made you and Chloe pay for it." "Chloe," I said, the name tasting like ash in my mouth. "How is she? And the baby?" A shadow crossed his face. "She had a girl, a month ago." He paused, looking down at his hands. "I'm not happy, if that's what you're wondering. Every day is a struggle. We fight constantly. All I did was trade one cage for another, one I built myself out of guilt and lies. Every time I look at her, I see you. Every time I look at my daughter, I see how I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." I listened, but I felt no pity. I felt no satisfaction either. I just felt done. He was a chapter in a book I had finally finished reading. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "I know that's impossible. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything." I took a sip of my coffee, considering his words. The old me, the girl who had loved him since she was 16, would have cried. She would have seen the pain in his eyes and wanted to soothe it, but she was gone, burned away in the fire of that birthday party. "Thank you for the apology, Mark," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I appreciate it, but the best thing you ever did for me was throw those divorce papers in my face." He looked confused. "What?" "You said you were giving me my freedom," I said, a small, genuine smile touching my lips for the first time in his presence in nearly a year. "And you were right. You set me free. Not just from you or our marriage, but from the person I was supposed to be. I got to decide who I wanted to become instead." I stood up, gathering my things. "I wish you the best, Mark. I really do. You have a daughter to think about now. I hope, for her sake, you learn how to be a better man." And with that, I walked out of the cafe and into the bright afternoon sun. I didn't look back. There were no fairy lights, no cheering crowd, just the quiet, steady confidence of a woman who had walked through hell and found herself on the other side. My 30s had started with a spectacular implosion, but it was my life now, and for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see what happened next.